From the Jennings Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University, this is Trailblazer Weekly, starring Keric and Drayson Ball.
Another Wednesday, another edition of Trailblazer Weekly here from the CEC TV studios. We are live on Radio Dixie 91.3 FM on CEC TV, that is TDS Cable Channel 108, and live on the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page. Keric Segmiller alongside Drayson Ball. Another loaded show on tap for you today on this edition of Trailblazer Weekly. Drayson, the football team, is on a roll. 3 consecutive road victories. They're 3-1. Heading back to take on Black Hills State. Finally back inside Trailblazer Stadium. Cross country had a phenomenal weekend over the weekend. Both soccer teams went 2-0 over the weekend. A lot of great stuff to talk about. We've got Aaron Simpson. We've got cross-country head coach Justin Decker coming in. Tons of great stuff on the show today.
Got a loaded show. It's going to be tremendous. A lot of winning over the weekend for Dixie State sports. Aaron Simpson in about 15 minutes. He'll be absolutely tremendous. Can't wait to talk to him and see what he's got to say about this 3-game win streak for the Trailblazers. And then obviously you mentioned cross-country, women's soccer, men's soccer. We got it all on today's show. It's going to be great.
Going to be a fantastic show, and it's all right here on Trailblazer Weekly. Big weekend coming up. Football is the only home event coming up this weekend, so mark your calendars. 1 p.m. Black Hills State will be inside Trailblazer Stadium. We're going to break it down a little bit later in the show, but want to just give you that information right off the bat. It almost feels like a home opener again because this football team has been gone so long, 3 weekends in a row. But the Trailblazers need your support. They've earned your support. So come on out, support the Trailblazers inside Trailblazer Stadium this weekend. We start the show off, as always, with our weekend observations. Drayson and I will let you know the best thing that we saw over the weekend and really what stood out to us, which individual or which team. So we go to that, our weekend observations.
Time for Keric and Drayson's Weekend Observations.
I will get it started. My weekend observation is the women's soccer team, Keric. Tremendous weekend for them. Went 2-0, defeated Regis on Friday. And then Black Hills State on Sunday, 4-0 in that game, 2-0 against Regis. 2 shutouts over the weekend. They were absolutely tremendous. They've been on a roll all season, and let me tell you, it has been a home, sweet home for Dixie State. 4-0-1 inside Trailblazer Stadium. They are undefeated at home, had just the one tie last week, two weekends ago against Westminster, but very, very good right now. They're 4-1-2 overall, just the one loss on the season. 2-0-1 in the RMAC conference play as well. They're just playing really, really well right now. I mean, one of the biggest takeaways, I think we mentioned it on last week's show, is just the diversity of this team. Of the 16 total goals they've scored this season, they've been by 10 separate players. Whitley Johns leads the team with 3 goals, but she's joined by four other players with 2 goals. 5 other players have scored at least 1 goal for Dixie State this season for the women's soccer team. They are just absolutely tremendous right now. Whitley Johns scored in that game against Regis alongside Kelsey Cook, who scored as well. And then, of course, the 4 goals against Black Hills State: Tess Donaldson, Zoe Clark, Alexa Ashton, and JC Cook-Dando. So it's just one of those teams where it's not just one player. You can't just key in on Whitley John like they were able to do at times last year. I mean, it's so deep, and they've got so many players that can score from any part of the field, really. I mean, it's not just one side or the other. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of depth. They're 4th place in the conference right now behind Regis, UCCS, Colorado Springs, and then Colorado School of Mines as well. Good news is they play UCCS this weekend. They play Colorado Christian and Colorado School of Mines coming up next weekend as well. So a lot of important games coming up for the Trailblazers. If they're going to want to move up in this conference, we're going to get a good indication of where they sit in this conference in just 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, we talked about last week how both soccer teams were really on the brink of an offensive explosion, of being able to do some great things. And the men's soccer team won the couple of games over the weekend as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show during Blazer Beat. But this women's soccer program, like you said, Drayson, it is on the up and up. We've seen them with the ability to score right from the start. One of their first games of the season, a 6-1 win over Cal State San Bernardino, and they've just kept it up since then. I think they'd even argue that they feel like some of the games they've lost, they were in. They've had some heartbreaking ties or losses, just like the men's team has had. So great weekend, fantastic weekend for Trailblazer women's soccer, especially to put on a good show for the home crowd. Extremely proud and just excited for Coach Golas and for this team and what they've been able to accomplish thus far, and what they will have the opportunity to do going forward. And they want to hoist that Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference crown. So hopefully they are able to do so. My weekend observation is cross country. I think it's a team that we don't talk about every week. They run, they work their hearts out, and they're not always having the newspaper reporters or the media lining up to talk to them, but they work just as hard, if not harder, than any program, than any team on campus. They're up way before I'm up, that's for sure. Here at the stadium or out on trails around town, putting in work, doing their runs to make sure that they're ready for their races, and it paid off big time over the weekend. They headed to their second race of the season, and this was at the Sacramento State Capital Cross Challenge in Sacramento, California, on Saturday. This was a preview of the NCAA 2A National Championships course. So if Dixie State is able to qualify for nationals this year as a team, they will run on that course. If they just send some individuals, that's the course they will run. So with that in mind, there were teams from all over the country, Division I teams, Division II teams, because it's the Division II National Championships course, the top teams, top talent, and the Trailblazers come out and really set the tone for the rest of the season. Both teams set their team records for their race lengths. So the men's ran an 8K course, and they broke that team record. The women's team, they ran a 6K course, and the women's team set a new 6K team record. Kyler Miller, a freshman on the men's team, he shattered Hunter Chamberlain's previous record in the 8K by more than a minute. But it wasn't just him. Kevin Kirk was just right behind him. He also finished ahead of the previous record. So you had Kyler Miller and Kevin Kirk with huge numbers, and then a few other guys in there as well. The top 5 in the men's team, their average time was better than the previous 8K record by Hunter Chamberlain. So just a huge weekend. Billy Hatch set the 6K record over the weekend on Saturday. So records falling all over the place. I was talking to Coach Decker. He said, we're right on the bubble. We're expecting to be in those South Central Region rankings, which we've never been in before. They were not, but they're still on that bubble, and just a huge weekend for this men's and women's cross country teams. Kyler Miller was just named the RMAC Men's Cross Country Runner of the Week. This is the first time that's happened, at least since I've been here. Definitely the first time that's happened as a member of the RMAC. But huge shout out to this cross country teams, everything they did over the weekend. We're going to have Coach Decker on the show a little bit later today to be able to talk more about it. But absolutely outstanding performance by our cross country runners this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, they were tremendous. It'll be fun to talk to Justin Decker in about an hour. It's going to be fun to see what his reaction is, get his kind of response to the first couple of weekends in the season. It'll be really fun to talk to them. Good start. I mean, anytime you can break your own record and do it in such dominant fashion like they did over the weekend, and not just one or two, it was the whole team as a whole ran very well, and then obviously just destroyed records left and right. It was really fun to watch.
Those are our weekend observations. We're going to do that at the start of the show each and every week. And, Drayson, that leaves us just a couple of minutes to break down this football win over South Dakota Mines. The Trailblazers 28-16, trailing at halftime, as they have been a couple of times this year. Came out, won it 28-16. Big second half. This team, Drayson, is starting to be known for its second half success. And it was the defense in the first half again, leading to some offensive success in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, their defense was just absolutely tremendous once again this weekend, as we're getting some highlights here of just what they were able to do. Of course, this is their offense. Keaton Mott was absolutely tremendous. He played well. He got the start this week for the Trailblazers. Went 21 of 38 for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He played, I thought, really well. At times, he's looked a little bit maybe nervous, or maybe he just hasn't been able to kind of get a rhythm yet going into the season. I thought he did a lot of good things, and you see here, of course, a long pass there to go all the way to the end zone to DeJuan Dantzler. I thought he just kind of settled into that position, and now whether we see him start this weekend against Black Hills State, that's yet to be determined, but I think he played very, very well. How about the defense? I mean, they were just unbelievable throughout the entire game as well. Sir Barnes led the defense with 17 total tackles, and then, of course, you can't forget Dylan Hendrickson. I mean, he was in the backfield all game against South Dakota Mines. 14 total tackles, 4.5 sacks. That is a Dixie State school record, at least in the Division II era, which is unbelievable. You had the call there out there in South Dakota, and it was almost every other play. It seemed like you were mentioning Dylan Hendrickson again in the backfield. It was really, really fun to watch. The defense is what really propelled them, and then the offense again settled in a little bit and played very, very well.
Yeah, those two, Sir Barnes and Dylan Hendrickson, tag teamed and were in on almost every single play defensively for the Trailblazers. Dylan was rewarded for that effort. He was named RMAC Defensive Player of the Week. We'll go ahead and we'll just take this time to also name him our Campus Store Player of the Week right here on today's show. So Dylan Hendrickson, congratulations to him. Again, like you said, 14 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. Also was credited with a pass breakup. I think it probably could have gone as a quarterback hurry. He last play of the game, he smashed the quarterback right as he was getting rid of the football, and that's what sealed the win for the Trailblazers. He also had a sack just 2 plays before that, helping the Trailblazers win that one. But this defense, we're starting to see the pattern. We're starting to see that this defense it was a question mark, not because of a lack of talent, but because it was unknown coming into the season. This defense lost so many players that we said, who is this defense going to be? What's their identity? Well, their identity is smash mouth football. We're going to be in the backfield and ready to take you down at any moment. Also, starting to be known for interceptions. Aaron Simpson, 2 more interceptions. Both were in the first quarter, and both helped lead to field goals for this team. And James Baird was fantastic again. And just an overall performance. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a couple of segments. And we'll talk about our Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers in a couple of segments. The second half success is good. I think the Trailblazers need to be a little bit better in the first half going forward.
Yeah, I agree. But, anytime you can have a defense like this is kind of your anchor. And it's not what we thought we would see this season. I mean, we thought it was going to be a high-powered offense, which at times it struggled, but shown flashes. The defense, though, last 3 weeks over their 3-game win streak, just allowing 10 points per game for opposing offenses, which is tremendous. You'll take that to the bank every single day.
Trailblazers 28-16 over South Dakota Mines in Rapid City. Earning the title, Road Warriors. I don't care who you play. We've said this over and over. It doesn't matter who you play. When you win 3 games in a row on the road, first of all, you should never have to play 3 games in a row on the road in football. That just shouldn't happen. But it did, and they put their heads down. They went to work and got all 3 wins. So congrats to the football team. And now they're back at Trailblazer Stadium this weekend to take on Black Hills State. And it almost feels like the home opener all over again. We've got one of those players we just named in Aaron Simpson, senior defensive back. He is waiting to join us on Trailblazer Weekly. So we've got to go to a break. When we come back, senior defensive back Aaron Simpson joins us on the show.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
For over a century, Dixie State University has been shaping the trailblazers of tomorrow by providing a culture of active learning, active life. With a paradigm of real-world experience, mixed with cutting-edge technologies and rich traditions, we provide one of the most affordable educations in the West, set against the most stunning backdrop on the planet.
Today's show is brought to you by the Dixie State Campus Store. the official source for DSU Trailblazer clothing, providing students with textbooks, as well as educational, office, and art supplies. Located on the second floor of the Gardner Center, the Dixie State Campus Store, proud sponsor of Trailblazer Weekly.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly, inside the CEC TV studios. Here at the campus of Dixie State University, the Dixie State football team off to a great start, 3-1 on the season, and the defense has been a huge part of that great start. And today we bring in senior defensive back Aaron Simpson. Aaron, thanks so much for stopping by the studio today, for joining us on the show, and first of all, congrats on a great start to the season. Excited to have you here. So as we mentioned, the defense has been a huge part as we just dive right into the meat of this interview. We only got 15 minutes, so we're going to rock and roll here. Defense has been a huge part of what's been happening on the football field this year. The offense has done some great things, but it seems like it's been the defense clicking the momentum and sparking things for the offense quite a bit. Talk about how important your guys' defensive effort has been through the first 4 games and really how you guys have been able to go out and set that tone defensively for your team.
Well, first thing, I want to thank the coaches for preparation. I mean, we're preparing all week for our teams, and I feel like the way we prepare is incredible. I mean, you know, we're putting positions and things that they do exactly in the game that are going to happen in practice. So, I mean, just it starts with our coaches. Like, it starts from the top and it comes from the bottom. And then just practicing hard and believing in each other that every guy is going to do their 111, meaning do their job. And, I mean, just playing hard. That's pretty much the motto that we've been going with. Like, you know, we can't give up. I understand we've been playing pretty good for the last few weeks, but we still haven't reached our peak. You know what I'm saying? We're still striving for way more than what we are, where we're at.
It's been, speaking of that defense, it's been incredible to see. You played last year, but there are other guys. You know, you got Darius Nash back in the secondary that didn't play as much, and he's come in and thrived this year. Dylan Hendrickson on the defensive line. You know, Malaki's still doing what he does at linebacker. I think a lot of people said there's a question mark about this defense because, you know, we lost a lot. We graduated or they transferred or what have you. But this defense has really come out and been huge. And one of those big things is takeaways. I mean, you guys have 6 interceptions at this point. You're forcing fumbles. How much are those takeaways emphasized in practice to help your football team?
Every day. We're doing ball drills every day. I want to say we touch the ball. I mean, I wouldn't say as much as receivers, but us, our defensive coach, our defensive back coach, and our defensive coordinator, Tyler Allman and Mike Smith, they prepare us well as far as doing ball drills, our everyday drills and things like that. So, I mean, we touch the ball pretty often in practice.
Chatting with senior defensive back Aaron Simpson live on Trailblazer Weekly, you know, obviously turnovers are huge for both your defense, obviously because you get off the field, but then it's also a spark for your offense to get them back out onto the field. And with this offense, at times we've seen, you know, from Coach Paul Peterson has been electric, but I think it's like Keric said, it's all really started from the defense. You guys right now are currently +1 in the turnover margin, so anytime you're positive in the turnover margin is obviously a good thing. You're, of course, leading the team with 4 interceptions. You had an interception return for a touchdown 2 weeks ago against New Mexico Highlands University, you know, a tremendous play. Just talk a little bit about what have you been able to do this season, obviously leading the team in interceptions. What have you been able to do coverage-wise? Are you just being put in the right spots? You're obviously making the plays, but what have you been able to do just to be able to lead your team in this thus far in interceptions?
Well, throughout the week, we start off a little rough in practice. You know what I'm saying? Like, they show us what they're running, but it's not really as transparent as it is Monday as it would be Thursday. You know what I'm saying? So I'm, in a sense, nervous all the way up until game day, just because I'm like, all right, I don't know if I myself prepared that, you know, but I know the coaches have prepared us, but it's just me with my technique and things like that, and me watching my eyes and me watching my opponent, me watching film and things like that. So it all comes together when it gets closer to game day, because then I'm like, okay, the coaches prepared us well. I feel like I've prepared well. The technique that we have done and everything has come together. So that's pretty much what I feel like it is. It's just all that, us being a cohesive unit.
I mean, if you are nervous, it certainly doesn't look like it out on the field. I mean, you're obviously playing tremendous. Let's go back and talk a little bit about that pick six a few weeks ago against New Mexico Highlands. Just tell me a little, kind of walk us through what did you see, what did you read from the quarterback, and then obviously you were able to take it back to the house. Just give us kind of a rundown of that entire play.
We've been watching film on them, and it's been a pretty. They haven't really threw the ball too deep. You know what I'm saying? So in a sense, when they were in that specific set that play just so happened to happen on, we kind of expected it and we knew it was coming. Like he said, Darius Nash has been playing incredible. He made the perfect call. You know what I'm saying? He's our quarterback on the field, so he made the perfect call to put me in a position to break on the ball, what we call trigger. So I end up triggering, and man, God ended up blessing me to get to the end zone. My boy Samote made an incredible block, and then from there on, it was just a touchdown from there, and I appreciate it. Appreciate guys in front of me. The D-line made it easier because they got there in a quickness. So it made the quarterback get the ball out fast. So, I mean, it was just a team effort.
Of course, you made a similar play on Saturday at South Dakota Mines. I would say your move was probably even quicker there to jump that pass and didn't quite get to the end zone, but still was a big return and helped set up a field goal for your team and help your team get on the board. And speaking of that game at South Dakota Mines, last week on the show, even with Coach Peterson on the broadcast, I said on the broadcast Saturday at the game, kept using the phrase road warriors. It's not often that you go and you're going to play 3 games in a row at any level on the road. And you guys were able to go out and to win all 3. What was the team's mindset going into this game in Rapid City on Saturday, knowing that, hey, this is the 3rd road game? We just came off of a bus ride, a plane ride, and another bus ride. Sure, we're tired. Sure, it's wet. It's raining outside. But we've got to win this football game because we have big goals to accomplish. What was the team's mindset Saturday night going into that game?
If I could best describe it, I'd say perseverance. I mean, like you said, the bus ride, the plane ride, another bus ride. We even stopped at Mount Rushmore. Not to say that it took time or anything, but it's just we're on our feet again. You know what I'm saying? So perseverance. I mean, everybody was dialed in. The thing about it, we couldn't control certain things, and that's one thing that our coaches are big on. Coach Peterson and the rest of the coaches are control what you can control.
Well, it seems like I like you using that word perseverance because it seems like there's been moments in every game so far this season that you've had to persevere. There's been, at Fort Lewis, you go down into halftime down by 2 scores, and you come back and have a huge second half and win the football game. And then it's not as big of a deficit on Saturday, but you're down 10-6 going into the halftime break. And I know that game probably felt like, what, we're losing? Because, Dixie State played good football in the first half, but you go down 10-6 at halftime. This team is resilient. That's probably the word I would use as well. Perseverant, resilient. How have you guys been able to fight through that and know, listen, we don't care if we're losing at halftime. We don't care if we're losing in the 3rd quarter. We're going to make the plays we need to do to win the football game.
Resilient, like you said, but we appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? But we got to come out on all 4 cylinders. It's not about coming back in the second half. Like, who wants to do that? Like, who wants to get pushed down and to have to get back up? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if we come out on all cylinders, we're put in situations where we don't even have to worry about coming back or doing things like that. So we still haven't reached it. We still haven't reached our peak yet, and that's what we're striving for. Our goal is a championship. So we got to play like a championship team, and championship teams play 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, overtime, until Christmas.
Chatting with senior defensive back Aaron Simpson live on Trailblazer Weekly as we get a little bit more of a peek behind the curtain into Aaron's season so far and the team's 3-1 start. Obviously out on the road 3 games. Even I don't care who you play. If you play 3 games on the road and you win all 3, it's impressive. And now obviously kind of the narrative changes a little bit. You have 5 of your next 7 at home. How does the mindset change, if at all, from playing out on the road road from playing at home. Obviously, you go out on the road, you got to know you got to be sharp. You got to play your best game because winning football games on the road is incredibly difficult. Obviously, you can't ease up now that you're playing at home, but does the mindset change at all now that you're playing 5 of your next 7 at home?
Well, first off, we're 0-1 at home. So technically, we haven't held down the fort. So if you ask me, it's the mindset has to change. Yeah, I mean, we're road warriors, but we got to stop people from coming in our house. You know what I'm saying? And like we said, we got to focus on Black Hills. They're the first ones on the list to come and try to interrupt things, to try to be home wreckers. And we got to allow that to, we got to limit the mistakes as a team.
Aaron, you're obviously in your senior season here at Dixie State. Obviously last year as a junior had a lot of good memories, and so far this season you guys are off to a good start. Just talk to me a little bit about what you have learned in your career as a football player last season at Dixie State, going into this season. Kind of what has made you grow as a football player, as a person, as you play your senior season here at Dixie State.
Well, first off, I like to thank God because I'm blessed to even still be playing. It's been a long journey for me, and I'm blessed to even have a senior year, unlike some guys. So that's the first thing. And the difference is maturity. That's what I could say. I could say the difference is maturity. Not that I wasn't mature last year, but there were things that I didn't see that I see now, and things that affected me last year that I won't allow to affect me this year. So the best thing I could say is maturity, and maturity for not only myself, maturity for guys that I've seen it in. Darius Nash himself, very mature. Anthony Yarbrough, the guys that have matured from last year, and like you said, Dylan Hendrickson. It's so many guys I can name, but the main word I could say is maturity. The guys that matured from last year, we've accepted a situation that we didn't know what was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So now we're taking it and we're the way we're moving is a mature way. We're moving as men, I would say. So it's maturity.
We're chatting with, Dixie State football senior defensive back Aaron Simpson, currently leading the team in the RMAC in interceptions with 4 interceptions this season. But as you've heard throughout the interview, he's not done. This Dixie State football team is far from done. And just a couple of minutes left here on the interview. And what you said there and kind of led right into my next question. And, this has been kind of literally a new look Trailblazer squad this year. You roll out some new uniforms this year. You're playing under a new coaching staff, a lot of new teammates. You just mentioned the maturity and the things that the team has had to go through and to grow through, as playing under this new coaching staff. What have you been able to learn from these new coaches? Not only a new head coach, but a new defensive coordinator, a new position coach, and Mike Smith. What have you been able to learn from this new coaching staff that has helped you improve as a football player out on the field?
Well, I wouldn't even say as a football player, because that's besides the fact, because it's not about that. These coaches have, not saying that the last coaching staff hasn't, but this coaching staff has definitely allowed us to walk the straight line as men. It's certain things that we can do, that we have to do now. Certain things that won't get by now. And this coaching staff is, you know what I'm saying, they've really, it starts from the top. So Coach Peterson brought that in, and every other coach has implemented that to every other position. So it's just us being men. It's not about football players. It's talking to them. Sometimes you'll forget about it. You know what I'm saying? You forget about football, and it's more about, come on, man. You know, what are you going to be after football? Like what's next? So that's a big thing that me as a man that I appreciate and I like.
Of course, always hard to talk about, but you wearing those wristbands on your wrist there, and you got a good friend and brother and Abraham Reinhart watching over this team as well, and you just talk about how you guys are trying to honor him and play for him this season, as that was another one of those new coaching staff, and then you lose a brother right into spring practice. Talk about how you guys are trying to honor him this season, and you're wearing stickers with his name on the back of your helmets. You're wearing the wristbands, and you know we can all feel his presence with this football team. How are you guys trying to honor him and play for him this year?
As a team, I wouldn't even use the word honor. He's still here. You know what I'm saying? We feel him.
Yeah.
We listen to the songs that he used to listen to. He's within. So we don't even necessarily honor. He's within. He's here. You know what I'm saying? It's more than honoring him. It's not about, you know what I'm saying? He's here. You know what I'm saying? So he's never left us in a sense. So if a better way to put it is that he's within, then yeah, he's still out there. Absolutely.
And not only can you guys feel it, we can feel it, and we can feel, special things brewing with things with that and with Abraham and everything that this team has been through in the last year. So it's been fun. It's been fun to see this team grow, and been fun over these last few weeks to see the wins pile up and just know that, like you said, we haven't peaked yet. Big things to come still.
Not only that, of course, you guys on the defensive end, I'm sure making Abraham proud with your play over the last 3 games, and all season obviously, but the last 3 games specifically. And I know he'd be looking down, and he'd be certainly proud of this defense the way they've been playing the last couple weeks. So.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. Long live Abe. Am I down?
He's senior defensive back Aaron Simpson joining us here on Trailblazer Weekly. Our time is just about run out. Want to ask you, kind of put you on the spot just a little bit. You've been playing football a long time. It's probably hard to think of on the spot, but do you have a favorite football memory that you think back on? And man, that was fun. I'm sure, like you said, it's a blessing to strap on the helmet every single day and to still be playing and to still be making those memories. But are there a memory or two that maybe jump out at you as you look back over your football career through college and high school and youth leagues?
Yeah, most definitely. My first championship I've ever won was with my younger brother, and that's the first time we ever played football, which was with each other, which was 2014 at Mount Sac. So Mount San Antonio College out in Walnut, California. Mm-hmm. Sac Dogs. So it's always good to play with your brother, but when you win a championship with your brother, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people don't get to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can grow up, and I can tell my nephew if he has a son, or I can tell my niece that, I played with your dad in the championship game and things like that. So that's one experience that I'll never forget.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Always good to have that kind of, not only a team as a brotherhood, but have your actual blood brother there on the team as well. It's always fun to hear those stories.
He played receiver too.
And that was, so you guys had a lot of battles, I'm sure, there in practice, back and forth. And so that's always good to hear those stories as well.
Well, thanks so much, Aaron. We appreciate you stopping by and taking time out of your busy schedule. We know the life of a student athlete is go, school, work, practice, study. So we appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here with us and help us get to know you, because everything we do is for the student athletes, and without you guys, I don't have a job. Drayson doesn't have a job, and you guys make our job easy. So we appreciate you stopping by and chat with us today.
All right, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you guys.
We got to take a break. When we come back, Trailblazer Weekly marches on. I've done that 2 weeks in a row now. Trailblazer Weekly marches on as we break down the upcoming game against Black Hills State on Saturday afternoon. The Trailblazers are back at home inside Trailblazer Stadium. We'll break it all down. Coming up next on the show.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel, someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day, because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly as we continue marching on a Wednesday afternoon live on CEC TV, the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page, as well as Radio Dixie 91.3 FM from the Jennings Communication Buildings on the beautiful campus of Dixie State University. Marching on in segment 3 as we jump in, talk a little bit about this upcoming matchup the Trailblazers football team has this weekend as they welcome in Black Hills State University. Keric, like you said in the first segment, kind of feels almost like the home opener once again. It's been 3 long weeks since the Trailblazers have played inside Trailblazer Stadium as they did their opening week of the season. But 3 wins on the road, bringing back a 3-1 record from being out there, those road warriors as we talk a lot about. But coming back home, playing Black Hills State, a team that you feel like you have a pretty good matchup against.
Yeah, the Trailblazers feel like that. They've always matched up pretty well against Black Hills State. We'll get to the series history in just a minute. But yeah, I like what you said about it feeling like the home opener all over again. That September 7th game against CSU Pueblo is a distant memory now. It almost feels like last season. And so the Trailblazers, they had that one game. They went out on the road, and it was like they got a fresh start out on the road. Now they come back 3-1. I thought it was interesting when we talked to Aaron Simpson about, hey, returning to home sweet home. It's Trailblazer Stadium. He said, well, we haven't lived up to what we need to do at home. We lost to Pueblo, so we're 0-1 at home. So we're road warriors, but we've got a lot of work to do at home. And it just is a testament to where their focus is, where this coaching staff is helping this team focus on. And they look at last year and they see 2018 squad went 5-0 at home. We're 0-1 right now. We've got to be better at home. 6 games at home this season, and the Trailblazers would love nothing more than to go 5-1 at home. Ultimately, you wanted to be 6-0 at home. You lost to Pueblo. Can't do anything about that now. Trailblazers want to be 5-1 at home, and it starts with Black Hills State on Saturday. A team, like you said, Dixie State, on paper, it appears to match up with very well on paper. And we'll talk about that, about this matchup, and we'll dive into it and start breaking it down. A couple of weeks ago, and with a couple of these teams, we've said, who is this team going to be that Dixie State is playing? Who is this quarterback? Who is this running back? And Black Hills State, I think, is one of those teams where, right from the top, you look at and you say, okay, they've played 3 different quarterbacks. We can see who's listed as the starter on the depth chart right now. But who is going to get the start? Will he play the whole game? How will he be? The guy that's listed on the Tovar, Andrew Tovar, at number 1 on the depth chart right now. He's a Division I bounce back. He played at redshirted 1 year at University of Arizona, but the numbers that he's put up so far aren't necessarily Division I type numbers. He's 43-74 with 5 interceptions, 446 yards, 3 touchdowns, but. Obviously, you don't go to a Division I school if you don't have that talent in there somewhere. Cody Wilstead went a year to BYU and is back here at Dixie State. Keaton Mott played a couple of years at Northern Colorado and is now here at Dixie State. So there's always that talent and that potential, and you'd hate to see him come out and have that breakout game against Dixie State. But I think that's the number one question right there is who will be quarterback? How will he play? Will he play the whole game?
Yeah, it's been, like you mentioned, kind of a merry-go-round at quarterback. Like you mentioned, Andrew Tovar got the start for the first 3 games of the season, was benched after about 2 or 3 series against Adams State. He threw an interception, got benched the rest of the game, did not play the next week against Fort Lewis. Now, whether that may have been they wanted to go a different direction, maybe he was injured. We never really know those types of things. But safe to say, he's had some struggles overall to start this season, and you really don't know. I mentioned in my notes, you really don't know what you got at quarterback, like you mentioned with Andrew Tovar, 58% completion percentage, 446 yards. He's got an inverted touchdown to interception ratio, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You obviously never want to have more interceptions than touchdown passes. Running backs, they got a couple of pretty good ones. Nolan Susel and Peyton Gilmore, both capable of running the ball, but nothing super spectacular. You know what I mean? You don't have that kind of all-caliber running back like we've seen the Trailblazers face in the past. As far as their receiving core, it's kind of maybe a one-trick pony, if you will, for their receiving core. Kyler Harpham is their main guy. He's got 24 catches this season, 352 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. He is their main wide receiver. You're going to hear his name called a lot on Saturday. Hopefully not too much, but he'll be the main wide receiver. They only have one other guy that has a touchdown reception, and one other guy that has more than 100 yards receiving for their receiving core as well. In fact, 2 of their 4 top receivers are actually running backs. I mentioned them earlier, Nolan Susel and Peyton Gilmore. So it's kind of one of those situations where you could think the Trailblazers could get out. If they can get out to an early start and kind of control the momentum of this game, they could really put a hurt on Black Hills State, a team who comes in 1-3 on the season. They've lost to Shattern, Colorado School of Mines, and Adams State. They did beat Fort Lewis last week, 13-7. Not the kind of game you want to see for your first win, as far as that kind of production. Only scoring 13 points, obviously against Fort Lewis team. You don't want to hope to score a little bit more, but needless to say, they're 1-3. They're coming in. They're going to be hungry. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that's one of the situations the Trailblazers can capitalize and basically, control the tempo from this game early.
It's a team that it actually is fairly experienced. They returned, a number of starters, over a dozen starters at 13. I went through and looked at their 2 deep, and there's 17 total players listed on their depth chart, either the 1 or the 2 spot right now, that started in at least one game last year. And if started this year as well. So, that in order to be considered a starter, you have to start half the games at least. So they're not all technically considered starters, but 17 players on the current 2 deep started in at least one game last year. So an experienced team returning. I think you see most of that experience returning, Drayson, on the defensive side of the football. And it all starts with safety Josh Gurnaby. He was this team's second leading tackler last year. He's leading the team this year. So 87 tackles through 11 games last year. He's already at 46 tackles this season. He's on pace to get well over 100 tackles should he keep that up. Interesting to note that this Black Hills State defense that is their 6th leading tackler is a defensive lineman, meaning they've got 5 guys above them that are either a safety or defensive back. 3 of those top 5 leading tacklers, defensive backs. Not necessarily want to see your leading tacklers. You want to see a linebacker or 2. You'd love to see a defensive lineman in the first half of those. But 3 of those 5 leading tacklers are defensive backs, Josh Gurnaby being one of those. What that tells you is that we can, either using the short pass or even the ground game, we can get a push up front on this defensive line, should be able to get the ball through, and then should be able to pass the ball downfield as well. It's a team that's giving up almost an even split in rushing and passing yards. Should note, though, that teams over the first 4 games have attempted about 100 more rushing attempts against Black Hills State. But it's a team that Dixie State should be able to get a push up front against, should be able to get through that first level into the next level of Black Hills State, and even into the secondary to where those 3 defensive backs are racking up all their tackles.
Yeah, and a defense, like you mentioned, that Josh Gurnaby is their leading tackler. He was injured last week, had to sit out a few plays last week. He did eventually come back into the game. We'll see, obviously, if he's 100%. If he's not 100%, that might affect their defense as well. But like you mentioned, a team that does give up quite a bit of yards on the ground, that's a little bit more of the one side. The other, like you mentioned, it's pretty even. But 239 yards they allow on the ground. And for a Dixie State offense that is finding their ground game as we speak. I mean, they had 269 yards 2 weeks ago against New Mexico Highlands and 161 ground yards last week against South Dakota Mines. It could be a recipe for disaster, so to speak, if you're Black Hills State, that you're allowing almost 240 rush yards per game, and the Trailblazers seem to have found kind of their niche as far as the run game goes. So I'd like their chances in that regard. Hopefully we can see that trend continue where the Trailblazers rushing can continue to do well, and then obviously they have to play a very, very good defense. One of the things I wanted to mention, and we'll go ahead and we'll make this our Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers feature today. We talked a little bit about it in the first segment, but our Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers feature today, second half scoring. Obviously, that's been the thing that's carried the Trailblazers, but I would really like to see them get out to a good start in the first half. The Trailblazers right now averaging 137 yards of offense, total offense in the first half, compared to 244 yards of total offense in the second half. Right now, they're outscoring their opponents 86-22 in the second half. That's great. I love that stat. Continue to do that if you can, if you're the Trailblazers. But the problem is first half scoring, and I'm not saying there's a problem because it's a bad thing. They're 3-1, but the more eye-raising number, if you will, being outscored in the first half 44-26. That's something that you have to change if you're going to be able to continue to be a winning team as you face some of the higher-ranked teams in this conference. You're going to have to flip the script a little bit and outscore your opponents both in the first half and in the second half. So those numbers are our Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers feature.
Well, don't take my word or Drayson's word for it. Take Aaron Simpson's word for it. In the segment just before, the interview that we had with him, we brought up that second half efficiency, and he said, basically, in a nutshell, I'm paraphrasing, forget the second half. We've got to be better in the first half, and I think Coach Peterson would agree. Quickly before we break, let's take a quick look at the series history between Black Hills State and Dixie State. 3-game series so far. Trailblazers leading 2-1. The Trailblazers lost 20-14 in 2016 back in Spearfish, South Dakota, a game they felt like got away from them. They want that game back. That's the only loss that the Trailblazers have had in this series. Bounced back with a big win at home in 2017, and then had a big lead last year in Spearfish, and then in Spearfish, not Rapid City. Black Hills State came roaring back in the second half. Trailblazers actually went down in this game and then came back. It was Michael Sanders to Connor Miller, catch and score, diving for the end zone to go ahead and to win that game 41-38. So it's been a series that 2 of the 3 games have ended up in a one-score game. And I don't know if that's what I expect this weekend, but I think we can expect Dixie State to come out and Drayson to have a quick start and to start more similarly to what they did at New Mexico Highlands.
Yeah, and one other quick thing to note, Black Hills State -5 right now in turnovers in the turnover battle. Dixie State is +1 in that category. Look for that to play a role this weekend. If the Trailblazers can get 1 or 2 additional turnovers against Black Hills State, should put them in a good situation to win that football game.
Dixie State, Black Hills State. Kickoff at 1 p.m. at Trailblazer Stadium. Pregame at 12:30 right here on Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, on CEC TV, and on the Dixie State Stretch Internet portal. Not the YouTube page, but the Stretch Internet portal. You can find that link at DixieStateAthletics.com. We got to take a break. When we come back, it's time for Blazer Beat. We go around campus and let you know what's going on all the fall sports. Take the time out. Come right back with a Blazer Beat.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, you, yes, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, the boss, the boss's boss. If 1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes, that means it could be you, your barber, your barber's barber.
Nice work. Thanks.
You, your plumber.
Breathe right into your foot.
Your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker.
On your left.
Your cat jogger. Or you, your co-pilot. Your co-pilot's co-pilot. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org to know where you stand.
Today's show is brought to you by Rock Canyon Bank, serving Utah businesses and agriculture for over 25 years, with locations in Pleasant Grove, Orem, Provo, Spanish Fork, Fillmore, and at 94 East Tabernacle, right here in St. George. Rock Canyon Bank, back to banking. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly. Big shout out to all of our sponsors. This segment featured by Rock Canyon Bank. We just had a Rock Canyon Bank by the numbers as well. Appreciate Rock Canyon Bank and all of our sponsors and all they do to help make this show possible. Speaking of sponsors, it's time to jump right into things. It's our Blazer Beat this segment, but we're going to start it off with our Honolulu Grill highlights of the week, because what better way to go around campus and look at some of the big things happening than to look at our best highlights from the last week. So let's go to our Honolulu Grill highlights of the week, and this got some good stuff. This one, first one, Drayson, you witnessed with your own 2 eyes.
This was absolutely tremendous. Whitney Johns, you'll see here, she gets the pass on the left side of the defense. makes one or two defenders miss, and then she blasts one from about 30 yards deep, and she goes top left shelf to beat the defender, beat the goalie there. It was an absolutely tremendous shot. She really blew that one past that goalie.
To South Dakota Mines and football. What is going on with this play? Why is it a Honolulu Grill highlight of the week? Well, Dixie State had just given up a touchdown, and South Dakota Mines was thinking they were going to cut it to a one-score game. Well, think again. Aaron Simpson blocked the PAT, and then Simote Loco Tui picked it up, and he ran 100 yards the other way for Dixie State's first defensive point after in over 7 years. The last one was in 2012. And I'm telling you, it was the weirdest thing because Dixie State had a penalty defensively that extended South Dakota Mines' drive. The Hard Rockers went down and scored. It was 20-16. They just need the PAT to make it 20-17. You could feel the momentum shifting. All of a sudden, bad snap, slippery ball in the rain. I don't know. The holder had a hard time with it. Aaron Simpson able to block it. Trailblazers return it the other way for 2 points. All the wind from the South Dakota Mines side of the field left. It was still only a 6-point game, but the momentum went right back to Dixie State. So the Trailblazers went right back down and scored to take a 28-16 lead. That was your final score. But it was the wackiest, quirkiest thing that you've ever seen, and the Trailblazers get 2 points on the PAT.
Yeah, and it was funny. It was almost more funny for me to hear your call on it because you were saying the whole time they can return this. This will count if they get into the end zone. It'll count for points. It'll be two points. The thing that I'm bummed about is that they only credit him for a 100-yard return. He caught that about 7 or 8 yards deep in the end zone. He should have gotten credit for at least a 108-yard touchdown or a defensive point return there. So that's the only downside to that play there.
Honolulu Grill highlights of the week. We do it each and every week. We look at the best highlights from around campus. So be on the lookout for some of the best things you see over the weekend, even if they're on the road. If we can get our hands on the game film and we know that something big happened on the road, it's going to end up in our Honolulu Grill's highlights of the week. Time for Blazer Beat.
Let's do it. Let's start off with Blazer Beat. We do this every week where we go around campus to kind of talk a little bit about some of the sports that may not make our headlines every single week. Let's get it started. Keric, let's start off with cross country. What you got for me?
Cross country, we hit this one in the first segment, and it was my weekend observation because I just was extremely, when I say proud, I sound like a parent, like I'm one of their moms or dads or something, but it's fun. It's been fun to see this cross country program grow. Justin Decker's been with the program since 2010 or 2011, their head coach, and they've gotten better each year. Some years the women's team performs a little bit better. Some years the men's team performs a little bit better. Billy Hatch has been that dominant force on the women's team for a few years, and the men's team had Hunter Chamberlain, and he didn't finish his running career at Dixie State, and so they were looking to someone to be that leader. Well, they found him. For freshman Kyler Miller, RMAC men's cross country runner of the week this week after breaking the Dixie State 8K record. The men's team also set the team 8K record. Billy Hatch broke the women's 6K record, and the women's team broke the 6K team record. So records all over the place. But you had also on that men's side, you had a sophomore in Kevin Kirk that his time that he finished with was better than the previous 8K record. So, and in the top 5 men's runners, their average time was better than what was the individual 8K record going into this last race. So this cross-country team, huge performance. Coach Decker has been working with these teams. He's got talented runners, and I'm just excited to see what happens the rest of the season going forward to the RMAC Championship. Can they qualify a team for the Nationals later in the year? We'll find out.
Exciting stuff. Love to see what they're doing. Obviously, just whenever you can break a lot of records, it's always good.
Records broken are a very good thing. They're meant to be broken. So, Drayson, let's toss over to the soccer pitch and women's soccer.
Yeah, I talked about it in my weekend observations to start the show as well. I mean, they just have been really impressive to me so far this season. Obviously came out with 2 wins against Friday night against Regis, and then Sunday against Black Hills State. I mentioned it earlier, home sweet home for Dixie State. They're 4-0-1 at home. They have not lost a home match this season, 4-1-2 overall, and 2-1 in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, 4th place right now for the women's soccer team. But The good news is they can move up to that up that standings pretty quickly as they face 3 of the 4 teams that are ahead of them in the next 4 matches for them as well. And I mentioned this also as well in the weekend observations. They are a very deep team. In just the 2 goals the 2 matches this weekend, the 2-0 win over Regis and then the 4-0 win over Black Hills State. In just those 2 matches alone, not one repeat goal scorer. Whitley Johns, Kelsey Cook in the first match, Tess Donaldson, Zoe Clark, Alexa Ashen, and JC Cook Dandos in the second game all scored goals. Out of your 6 goals, all came from different goal scorers, which is obviously tremendous. It's always fun to have a very deep team, a very talented team, and very, very well coached by Steve Golas as well.
And women's soccer team, a program that we talked about, it just is ready to do some special things this year, and it was great to see over the weekend them win both games and see what they do going forward.
Going to be really fun going out on the road this weekend for the first time in 2 weekends. Going to be fun to watch them. Let's move on down to our men's soccer. Let's stay on the pitch, Karen.
The men's soccer team won both their matches over the weekend as well. So shout out to the men's soccer program, Coach Broadhead and these guys going out, getting 2 victories on the road. They went Friday to Regis, 2-1 win. They gave up the first goal in that game within the first 15 minutes of the match, came back, scored a goal before halftime to equalize, and then a goal in the second half to win it 2-1. And then they followed that up with a 3-1 win at UC Colorado Springs, and where they took a 2-0 lead at halftime. Colorado Springs pulled one back in the second half, and then the Trailblazers scored one to get it that final score of 3-1. The Trailblazers 4-3-1 overall, and how about this, 3-1 in RMAC play, and that one loss in conference play, could have gone either way. So the Trailblazers in 5th place right now. Last week I mentioned this men's soccer team was on the rise. This week I'm going to say they're starting to click. It's starting to be where we knew they could be, and a big test to see just how far they've risen this week. I mentioned they're in 5th place. Well, how about the 2 teams right above them in 4th and in 3rd place? It's Colorado Mesa and it's Fort Lewis, and the Trailblazers visit both of those schools this weekend. So Coach Broadhead and the boys are working hard. Shout out to John Joseph, RMAC Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week after 2 goals and an assist on this last trip to help them go 2-0 on the trip. This team, like I mentioned, on the rise. They're starting to click. Going to bust out the measuring stick and just see how far they've risen this weekend on that tough trip to Colorado Mesa and Fort Lewis.
A little bit of a young team. Some of the names we haven't really heard in previous seasons at Dixie State. I think give them a couple weeks now. It's starting to come together.
Absolutely. How about to the volleyball court, the Trailblazers volleyball team?
Yeah, a little bit of a rough weekend for them. They go 1-1. They beat Western Colorado 3-2 on Friday, and then they suffered the loss to Colorado Mesa 3-0. Kind of a up and down weekend for them. Western Colorado they played did not have Megan Trainer in that game. She was unavailable for that match, and then they turn around on a tough back-to-back against Colorado Mesa, a very, very good team.
Tough trip.
One of the tougher trips of the season. Like you said, obviously when you're playing Mesa on a back-to-back, one of the tougher teams in this conference, always going to be tough to play them on the road. But if you look at that game really against Colorado Mesa, you think, it's a 3-0 match. It was kind of a blowout. And you might be right, but if you look a little bit more deeper, the Trailblazers were right there in every single set. It wasn't nearly as much of a blowout as you might think. Trailblazers were tied at 15 in set 1 against Colorado Mesa. That one could have gone either way at that point. In set 2, they were actually just down 20-19 at that stage in that set, in set 2. And they did that. They were in that set up to that point with a .026 hitting percentage, the lowest hitting percentage of the match for the Trailblazers, with the fewest amount of kills and the most errors in that set. They still almost came out with that one as well. And then, of course, in set 3, they led that one actually 25-24. We're 1 point away from sending it to a 4th set, and you never know. You change momentum. Things could happen in set 4 and set 5. They led that one 25-23, and then a 3-point advantage gave them the victory 27-25 over Dixie State. But 1-1 and still in a good position as Rocky Mountain Athletic Comets after a tough weekend.
Coach Robin Felder, we know, is one of the top coaches in this conference and in the country. She'll have them right back where they need to be.
Let's keep it rolling. Just a minute or two left in this segment, Keric. Let's go with men's golf.
Yeah, quick hitters on the golf course. Both golf teams were out in action. I will talk about the men's golf team. Second week in a row, Trailblazers take a 36-hole lead into the clubhouse. Aman Uden, the freshman from England, on day one, he shoots 67 and then 70. He's 7 under. Brock Nielsen, Spencer Wallace have fantastic first days as well. And then the Trailblazers come out and shoot 25 over as a team in that final 18 holes, and they'll finish in 5th place. So they went 288 round 1, 285 round 2, and then 313 in round 3, and they finish in 5th place. Not sure what more else there is to say other than Coach Sutterfield would be probably the first to say this team needs to learn how to finish. And you know what? That's what the fall is for. You go back and look historically, the Trailblazers have had a few victories in the fall, but they use it as a learning process, and you can just see it every year. As they get into spring, as they get closer to that conference championship, they'll get going. They'll be where they need to be. I'm not worried about this men's golf team, but they do need to learn how to finish.
2 weeks in a row, they had the lead after 36 holes and finished not in first place. Not great, but certainly a learning experience for them. Got to learn how to play with the lead.
How about women's golf? Why don't you wrap up our Blazer beat with women's golf?
They played out that Sand Hollow Golf Course at the DSU Invitational this last Monday and Tuesday, I guess yesterday and Monday. They finished in 6th place at that event, but the good news is they were the top RMAC finisher. No other teams from the RMAC finished ahead of them in those standings. Caitlin Diebel finished at tied 20th at a 74-78. She finished at +8. But how about this? Kaylin Cardle finished +7 to lead all Dixie State golfers, tied for 16th. Megan Gaskill finished at +10, and Abby Porter finished at +12. A couple of good performances there. 4 different Trailblazers in the top 30, so very good individual performances. And like I said, 6th place finish, you might think, not too great, but the top RMAC finisher, which is what was really important at that event. Get a little bit of a preview to see where they might stand in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference.
I should mention, too, before we go to break, I don't want to leave them out. This was this last weekend where we had every fall sport in action. Women's tennis went to Colorado Mesa, 1-1. Win over Colorado College, a tough loss to Colorado Mesa. Colorado Mesa had that match circled on their calendars because the Trailblazers just beat them 4 times last year, including once in the RMAC Conference Tournament semifinals. So a tough loss there. They'll play them again later in the year. They'll try to bounce back and get one back on them in the spring. But the women's tennis team finishes their spring schedule. They go 3-3. So Coach Pelton and his team will pick up play again in February. That'll do it for our Blazer Beat here on Trailblazer Weekly. We got to take a time out. When we come back, we're going to talk more cross country. Phenomenal weekend for the Trailblazers in Sacramento, California. And joining us to help us break it all down is the head coach, Justin Decker. He'll join us right here on the set after this timeout.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Action.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly as we march on live on a Wednesday afternoon, and we bring in Cross-country head coach Justin Decker now joining us live on Trailblazer Weekly to talk about the success of the first 2 matches so far this season. Justin Decker, thanks so much for having us. Thanks so much for being on our show today.
Glad to be here. Love the show.
It's always good to have you on. And
good to know we have fans too.
Let's talk a little bit about. Let's just get kind of your early impressions of this team so far. Obviously, you had a very successful trip out to Sacramento State last weekend. Talk a little bit about just kind of your early impressions so far of both your men's and women's cross country teams.
Yeah, the big thing this year is just the overall depth of our teams. You know, we still do have one standout runner, I'd say, on each of our teams right now, which we've kind of had in the past, usually with runners like, well, Billy for a couple of years now, Skylar Story, Hunter Chamberlain, Rachel Young going way back. So you know, we have had some really good standout individuals in the past, but overall for our top 7 runners, this is by far the best we've ever had. You know, we have close to 20 runners on each team, and it's just full of good young runners and also returners that, you know, having big numbers like that work hard and push each other is just kind of contagious, where they help each other improve and work hard every day.
You go back 2 weeks ago to start the season. You went up to the BYU Autumn Classic. You finished 3rd there, both men and women. And you know, obviously last week you ran tremendously over and broke just all kinds of records. Just go back and talk a little bit about the BYU Autumn Classic, what you noticed there, and how you were able to get a 3rd place finish there, and then maybe just dive into a little bit about the run last week, breaking all those records.
Yeah, so you know, BYU, it's a fun one to go to just because we have so many runners from northern Utah, so get to go run our first race there, and a lot of their high school teams are there running the race at the same time, there to cheer them on, parents there to cheer them on. So and then just running against a team like BYU and then Weber State as well. But BYU, their men are ranked number 2 in the country in Division I, and their women I think are up to number 4 now. So you know, they're the top in the country for Division I. So to be able to get a race against that, obviously, you know, we're not really competitive racing against a team at that level, but it's still fun to run in that same race. And so our competition more in that race was Westminster, our conference rival. So we were able to beat both them and both men and women. So it was a good, successful first race. A lot of freshmen, the first collegiate race, but learning and did well, and then led into this past weekend.
Huge weekend in California last weekend as we chat with men's and women's cross country head coach Justin Decker, also coaches the women's track program in the spring. Just busy guy all over the place. But you go down to California, and you and I were talking kind of after the race too, and you knew that the conditions were ripe, I think, for a good race. Great weather. You're down closer to sea level, but the men and women really go out and perform. At what point did you know? I mean, do you bring a list with you of your records so that you know when you see those times at the end, like, hey, we're on pace for that. Hey, this could happen. I mean, at what point did you realize? Did you have to get back to the car and check it? At what point did you realize that so many records had fallen in that meet?
Yeah, I've been here long enough. Pretty much have those times in my head of what those records are. But they started off fast, and any time of the finish, you see those times and how fast they are. The first thing you're wondering is, was the course a little short or something? Those times are really fast. But some of our runners run with GPS watches where it measures their distance as they're running. So I went up to a couple of them like, what'd you give the distance on that? And it wasn't a short course. And that would have been surprising anyways because it's the national course, and they're going to make sure the national course is right on the distance. But it is those factors you just mentioned. Weather was great, overcast, and down at sea level, and it was a good, nice flat course on a golf course, no major hills, and just running against that high level of competition too, also pushes the runners. And lastly, it's just, we have really fast runners this year. So all those factors put together made for, the record-breaking times.
To recap, and we've mentioned this a couple of different times on the show, both teams broke their team records for the length of race that they ran. So the men broke the team 8K record. The women broke the team 6K record. Individually, Billy Hatch broke the women's team individual 6K record, and Kyler Miller broke the men's team 8K record. And of course, you and I talked after the race on Saturday, Justin, about that men's team, that really you average it about those top 5 runners for your men's team. Their average time combined were higher than the previous 8K records. The women ran a great race, but a phenomenal race run by the men's team. It's not just one person up ahead. It's, those top 5 runners really put in very competitive times, and times that, can be huge if they can duplicate those numbers come conference championship season.
Yeah, your team in cross country is only as good as your 5th fastest runner, and that's a huge strength of our team this year. We still do have a little bit of a gap there between our 1 and 2 runners, but 2 through 5, and even going 2 through 7 on both teams, are pretty tight, and not that big of a spread. So that's a huge strength for us.
Of course, and we can segue this into talking about both teams just a little bit. Maybe we'll start with the men's team. But Kyler Miller named RMAC Men's Cross Country Runner of the Week, something that hadn't happened before, at least as a member of the RMAC. And at least I don't remember. Maybe Hunter Chamberlain won 1 or 2 in the Pac West. But a great honor for him to be able to go out there and do that. And how nice is it to have a freshman come in and kind of be that, and you and I talked before the season that he would probably be that pace guy for this men's team that would be leading them. But big honor for him. And then how nice is it to have a freshman of all classes leading that men's team?
Yeah, he keeps surprising me every week. A lot of freshmen come in. They were really successful in high school, used to being in the front pack in races, and they come and start running their first college races and kind of expect it to be the same. So they go out longer distance in college, and that they're not used to, and much higher level of competition. So they go out, too hard and can't maintain it in these races. So BYU, that's kind of what I thought he was doing and what's going to happen to him, like so many freshmen do, and kind of this last race in Sacramento as well. But he just surprised me in that he was able to start off fast with the kind of lead pack and able to maintain it through the whole race. So it's been amazing to see what he's doing, and sky's the limit. He's only got room to continue to progress since he's only a freshman right now, and it's exciting to see what's in store for him.
Chatting live with men's and women's cross country head coach Justin Decker here on Trailblazer Weekly, as we continue to ask a little bit more about the men's men's team. Has a lot of young guys, like you mentioned, Kyler Murray and Hunter and Kevin Kirk, a sophomore as well. But you also have a handful of good returners. Talk to me a little bit about just kind of what your returners have meant for some of these younger guys as you've kind of gotten your feet wet into the season. Yeah,
so several of them, like Ben Fish, he was our number 2 our first race, number 3 this weekend. He's been here since 2016 now, so actually had a kind of an injury redshirt last year, so he's only a junior year this year, even though it's his 4th year. But he and put Tyson McKeon in there too, as well as a couple others that have been in the program now for 3 or 4 years and kind of know what's expected. They've been teammates with guys like Hunter Chamberlain, know what it takes to be successful at this level and how hard you have to work, and kind of taking care of the little things every day. So yeah, that example that they set for the younger runners is a big help.
And of course, on the women's side, you are led by Billy Hatch, who is just continues to be tremendous for your team. Finished 10th place over there in Sacramento State, shattering her 6K time as far as her time here at Dixie State goes. And obviously, she's just been kind of your leader. Alyssa Herring has been really good for you as well over the years. Got to be good to have some of those returners as well, kind of leading your team, and good for Billy Hatch to get on the course, the national preview course, and surely for her have to be hopeful that hopefully she returns there towards the end of the season in that national race.
Yeah, for sure. All-American has kind of been the goal for her last year and this year. Cross country last year. She could have been there. It was just got to the national course in Pittsburgh, and it was a snow-covered course, muddy course that had been torn apart by the men's race right before the women's race. So she slipped a couple times and had probably her one bad race of the season. So didn't reach that All-American status in cross country. And then track, she was top 12 All-American. She was 13th at nationals. So she's been really close and at that level, but she's definitely on pace for it this year, so just got to make sure she's running her best race at the right times to make sure she gets to nationals and then runs well there. And that was a big reason, obviously, why we went and ran in Sacramento so she could get to learn that course well, and hopefully this year don't have to worry about a snow-covered course in Sacramento as opposed to Pittsburgh.
Well, I tell you what, as we chat with men's and women's cross-country head coach Justin Decker, you mentioned that track national meet that she went and ran at too. It was 2,000% humidity that night and just deathly hot. And we got to talk to the weatherman in some of these national locations and say, hey, give our runners some good weather to run in. Like you said, hopefully in Sacramento, if she makes it that national meet, she can meet some good weather. It's fitting that the record that she broke was set by your other All-American in the cross-country program. Really was, I would call it probably the pioneer of that women's program in Rachel Young. She's a member of the Dixie State Hall of Fame. I'm sure that's got to mean something special to Billy to know that record I'm breaking was set by someone who has really set the mark in women's cross-country for this Trailblazer program.
Yeah, and going back then, that was 2012, and that was at the national championship race when she ran that time. And at that time, we thought that record might never be broken because it was such an amazing race for Rachel back then. She was 20-something at the national championship meet back then to earn All-American. I think they do top 45 for All-Americans in cross country at the national meet. But Billy is, we knew she was getting at that level pretty close to Rachel, and beating that time is pretty impressive. And probably would have been the conference runner of the week as well, like Kyler, if it wasn't for Colorado Mines, who's ranked number 3 in the country, that was also running in Sacramento the same time as us. So I think Division II runners, this is one of the biggest Division II meets, national meets of the year. It's the Nationals preview meet, and I think Billy was 4th out of the Division II runners in that meet, 10th overall when you add in Division I runners and stuff. But just unfortunate, Colorado Mines is really good. I think top 3 in the country, and have some really amazing runners as well that edged her out.
It's just fun to see these teams competing with some of that top talent. Of course, you go to SUU to the annual Color Country Invitational October 12th, and then before it'll be here before we know it, going over to Grand Junction in Colorado Mesa, hosting the 2019 RMAC Championships in just a couple of weeks on October 26th. In the remaining time that we had here, Justin, though, I wanted to talk about I know you guys, both teams are kind of running for a cause this year and missing. And I hate to put you on the spot here, but in missing, one of those women's runners that we probably would have been talking about this year, and being one of those top returners is Aaron Hurst, diagnosed with cancer. And maybe I can let you, tell our viewers a little bit more about that, not with the team, but just talk about how she's inspiring your teams this year, and how your teams really are running for a cause this year.
Yeah, Aaron was going to be a junior for us this year. Spring, in the track season, I'd say she was obviously we had Billy, who number one, but for our distance runners, probably our second strongest in the spring. She went and ran the steeplechase and placed 10th at the RMAC championship, which I think was in the track events, the second best mark we had at the conference championship. So she was started off the summer working really hard, motivated to come and have a really strong season. Is one of the leaders, returners on our team. Was going to be right in there, top 5, top 7 for us, having an impact. But just received the unfortunate news over the summer that she was diagnosed with cancer. But so she's definitely fighting a really tough battle. But if you know her, she is keeping a really amazingly positive attitude and determined to beat it. So very inspiring to me as well as the rest of our team. Kind of makes everything else seem so unimportant with what she's going through. But she sends video messages to our team before the race in Sacramento. She had sent a video message that we watched the morning before the race. Our team has bracelets and pins that they wear with her name on them. She was roommates with and kind of best friends with Billy Hatch. So, Billy, extra motivation for her to go and have a really strong season in honor of Aaron. So yeah, we miss her, but just doing whatever we can to honor her and run for her.
Absolutely. It's incredible to see. It's been, as you go back and kind of even with some of the tragedy that the football team faced in the fall or then in spring and then through the summer and now this, been kind of a tough year for Dixie State Athletics in that regard. And we wish you and your team all the best, but especially our thoughts and prayers are with Billy and with Aaron and with her family. And we're kind of in that same cause and running for that cause. I know that BYU kind of honored her at that race. And did everybody wear pins that day, or did BYU just present you guys with some pins or whatever it was? What was it that BYU did?
Yeah, so
for your teams
in the women's race, they'd heard about Aaron, so they had some girls on their team that had raced against Aaron in high school, and they made these yellow ribbons that just pinned onto the uniform. So there are 4 teams there. They gave them to all the runners from all 4 teams to wear in the race. Cool. And then right at the starting line before the race started, gathered in a prayer. And one of their good runners that was competitors with Aaron in high school kind of said a prayer for Aaron with all the racers involved. So it was a really special experience.
Absolutely. Where, like I said, thoughts and prayers with her and her family and with you and your program as you continue to try to make this a very special season for her and for your program. And we appreciate you stopping by and talking with us. Just a heck of a weekend this last weekend, and we wish you the best up at SUU. And then in a couple weeks, then the races really, not that they don't count now, but then the races really start to count with conference championship and regionals, and hopefully, we'd love to see a team qualify for nationals as well. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks.
He is men's and women's cross country head coach Justin Decker. Again, they will be in Cedar City on October 12th to compete in the SUU Color Country Invitational, a meet that they go up to each and every year. We'll keep a close eye on those results in a couple of weeks. We got to take our final timeout. When we come back, we'll put a bow on the show. We'll take a look ahead at the weekend schedule and kind of hit on some of our main points that we've talked about throughout today's show. We're back right after this.
There is a place where the sun doesn't hide in the winter, where the greens stay green and the crimson canyons still glow. There is a place where dimples determine destiny, and a tiny wooden tee holds the outcome in the balance. There is a place where we drive for show, putt for dough, and settle the score with another round. There is a place.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this.
I need a one dance.
And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
Today's show is brought to you by Honolulu Grill, bringing you a variety of Hawaiian and other Polynesian foods. Honolulu Grill's unique tropical taste will leave your mouth watering for more. Located at 706 700 South in St. George. Honolulu Grill. Come feast with us.
Welcome back inside the CEC TV studios. Studio A, if you want to get real technical, that's what the sign says out in the hall anyway. Studio A inside the Jennings Communication Building on the campus of Dixie State University, a building, Drayson, that very dear to you and I. We've spent the better part of the last, between the two of us, the last 10 plus years in this building. Both of us graduates of Dixie State University, the media studies programs, and just honored really to continue to work inside Dixie State Athletics and to be able to continue to work in the communication program and bring the Trailblazer news and analysis to all of you out there. Our last segment of the day as we wrap this thing up. Got about 5 minutes left on the show just to kind of put a bow on the show and let you know what's coming up in Trailblazer Athletics and who you can see at home this weekend and then touch on some of those main points from the show. And after a pretty busy weekend, the last couple of weekends, Drayson, especially at home, it really slows down this week, and the only home event this weekend is football on Saturday.
Yeah, but I mean, that
doesn't happen very often. You just have one home event for the weekend.
It doesn't happen very often. It seems like you guys are always, you especially statting the games are always, here and there, and here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, just the one home event this week, women football. As the last 5 minutes of the show, it seems like I just always just tune out.
Just checked out already.
It's not nearly as bad though as, and I have to bring this up. We talked about it earlier. I can't let you get away with this. If you don't know, on Trailblazer Weekly, we have this long-standing kind of, not necessarily an inside joke because everyone knows about it, but this long-standing joke about Mount Rushmore. And as you know, Keric has had the opportunity to travel with the football team up to South Dakota, up to Rapid City, South Dakota. That's not nearly as important as the monument up there. And he said, I'm going to go to Mount Rushmore and I'm going to take a picture there and just to show on the show that I know what the monument is and I know what it's called and everything. And then, of course, turns out the morning of a little bit of rain, just a little drizzle of rain and just a tiny bit of wind, Keric texted me and said, not going to be going to Mount Rushmore today. Don't really feel like going out and getting wet in the rain. So after all this time of you had the chance to redeem yourself at Mount Rushmore by going there and taking a picture, and we could have put it up on the show. You kind of reneged on your offer there. So I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest with you.
I should let everyone know that I have been there before. It's not like it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I just said, no, I'm not going to go. It was wet. It was rainy. It was windy outside. And we had our cross-country team dominating and our women's tennis team doing pretty well as well. That, the radio was just one of my responsibilities that weekend and had to get some other work done. So the life of a sports information director, you're here, there, and everywhere. And you're right. I did not take that opportunity. That makes two big monument places that we could have seen, or I could have seen this year. I guess I'm just a Scrooge when it comes to national monuments or places of interest. But I don't know what's left on the schedule. Gunnison, Colorado has the highest collegiate stadium in America, so we could see that. Let's see what's in anything else in Denver, Golden, Colorado. Maybe we'll find something. We'll find something in both of those areas, and we'll have some road tripping things. But also it was a superstition. 2015, when the team went to Mount Rushmore. Guess who didn't go? This guy did not go, and guess who won that game in 2015? Dixie State did, and I couldn't risk it. I had to make sure our team could come away with a victory. So
I'm glad you're giving yourself credit for the football team's victory. I mean, let's forget about the hard work the team put in and the hard work the coaches put in the preparation. It all is on you. You're the reason for them winning. So congratulations on that win.
Well, I had to do whatever I could to help win that game. In the remaining 2 minutes that we've had, since we burned 5 minutes on a roast session, let's talk about football. Back to Trailblazer Stadium. We talked about it almost feeling like the home opener again, because if you look at the calendar, when that game kicks off, it'll be the 5th of October. Almost, just 2 days shy of being a full month from the actual home opener on September 7th. It feels like that CSU Pueblo game was last year. Now, in the last minute of the show, Drayson, we get to talk about Trailblazers coming home to home sweet home.
Dixie State being outscored in the first half 44-26, while outscoring their opponents 86-22 in the second half. Black Hills State, a team that is allowing defensively 38 points per game and nearly 460 yards per game offensively for their opponents. So a really good game on paper for you to look at the Trailblazers and say they could get those first half struggles kind of out of their system and get off to a good start on Saturday. -5 in turnovers is Black Hills State. Dixie State is +1 in the turnover margin. Look for that to play a key role as well.
Dixie State, Black Hills State will do battle at 1 p.m. on Saturday at Trailblazer Stadium. The rest of our teams on the road. Head over to DixieStateAthletics.com to check out the full schedule. Shout out to all of our sponsors, Rock Canyon Bank, Honolulu Grill, the Dixie State Campus Store. Shout out to the CEC TV crew and for the Radio Dixie 91.3 FM crew for all they do in keeping us, getting us on the air, keeping us on the air all throughout the show. For Drayson Ball, I am Keric Segmuller. We'll see you on Saturday at the football game. Go Trailblazers.